And thank you everyone for joining today. I'm really delighted to be on another podcast. This is Rebecca from Seawolf Sustainability Consulting. And if I could please ask my guests to introduce themselves today. Thank you.
Rebecca, thank you very much. Thank you for having me on this podcast. It's actually an honor to speak with someone who has actually like played a pivotal role um, in the area of sustainable finance. It's really nice having you here with me as well. My name is Kenechukwu Nnaemeka, and I've had the privilege of working internationally in the venture capital space, where I led and managed diverse portfolio companies across that cut across different industries, tech, health, environment, etc. You name it. My role centered on fostering investments, innovation, driving growth, and most importantly, like embedding sustainability in the core of what I do, like which is in the finance space, and as well as like addressing the urgent needs and using finance to actually achieve that goal. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll stop.
Yeah, well, fantastic. And that's quite the introduction. And Um, it would also be interesting to know. I know where you're based now, but perhaps what's your background and what's led you to where you are today?
Okay. Currently I'm based in the United Kingdom, as you know.
Mm.
But prior to that, also I'm Nigerian. I was actually born and raised in Nigeria. And shortly after, I ventured into the venture capital space.
Hmm.
And this was after my bachelor's degree. And shortly after, the company I worked for at the time, transferred me to other places to actually go and like work and um, start up the venture capital businesses in other countries like Ghana. And now I'm here. That's the question, yes.
Yeah, and so you're based in the UK.
Yes, currently I'm based in the UK. Yes.
Yeah, and it sounds like quite some experience before that. And you mentioned venture capital and working in financial services. So, what what were you doing while you were in those venture capital roles, while you were in finance?
Oh yeah. My role in the venture capital space, well, it was essentially connecting capital to impactful innovation, really. I worked directly with founders, and in some cases, I even had to like coach founders, like during the maybe via incubation programs. I worked directly with founders as well. I assessed their business models, scale operations, help them in scaling their operations, and ensuring that these companies were not just financially viable, but also that they had environmental and social goals as well, or they were environmentally and socially responsible. um, I also advised on investment strategies, which prioritize long-term resilience over short-term gains. I mean, because
Hmm.
right now, as you'd have an idea because you've been in the space for a while. Um,
Mm.
Most companies are, it's always profit oriented or profit driven. I mean, and while that is not a bad thing to do, I mean, it's also very important to also make sure that the other areas are also considered as well, which would definitely lead to sustainable development. Um, Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting. So, supporting some of those smaller companies in a portfolio. Um, yeah, really interesting. And during your time when you were doing that, um, did you find there were changes, or how did that evolve? You mentioned incorporating different types of aspects, maybe environmental or social, beyond purely financial. And I know that's a bit of a work in progress, and different organizations will have their own approach. But did you
Yes.
see many of those changes yourself while you were working in venture capital?
Well, working in the international markets, it provided a unique lens for me, like
Mm,
on how financial services can actually catalyze meaningful change, per se.
mm,
So, for instance, in managing a portfolio company, let's say an agricultural technology portfolio company, right? I had to
yeah.
like support startups, how to innovate systemic, how to innovate systemic, to solve systemic challenges like
Mm,
food security and water management. So due to the fact that, I mean, it wasn't always like this, but while I was working with a venture capital firm, I was placed in charge of originating businesses. So
mm,
whenever I wanted to originate businesses, I always looked for businesses that, like I said, businesses that are environmentally and socially responsible, and not just like um, profit driven as well. So that actually helped me in also contributing in using finance in solving challenges, systemic challenges, like I said, like the food security. If you're talking about the agri-tech startups or agri-tech scale-ups, solving food security, water management, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, because
mm.
sub-Saharan Africa is where um, the climate change impact is felt the most, and that's due to the fact that we don't have like the sub-Saharan Africa don't have like the necessary infrastructures needed to to reduce the impacts of climate change, right?
Yeah,
I also,
for
I
sure.
also, yeah, I also had the opportunity to like guide businesses in adopting secular economic principles. There was
Hmm.
this company I recall at the time I originated back in Ghana. Shout out to Sam Lara.
Hmm.
She's the CEO of Lou Works. Um, so what she did was using plastic waste to like make or manufacture toilets for people who actually lacked it. And in Africa, it was like it was like a huge number till dates actually. So by doing that, reducing environmental footprints while creating economic value, right? And
Yeah,
also improving the standard of living of people in Africa who lacked access to basic amenities like even the use of toilets. That
yeah,
really helped a lot. Yes. So for me,
yeah.
what stood out to me was that sustainable finance, it was very important. It played a huge role in sustainability. So it made it like sustainability is not just a nice to have, but it's more of like a value creator, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
No, absolutely. I agree. And we were talking a little bit previously about that catalytic role that finance has and all the different types of finance, of course, and they have their own
Yeah,
ambitions, own risk appetites, etc. But there really is that catalytic role, particularly with innovations. And um, if I paraphrase a little bit, really looking at some of the needs and some of those environmental, social, other types of needs, uh, and bringing innovations and trying to solve some of those complex problems in the world. I think there's a really important role there.
yes, it is. I mean, it's very essential. Yes.
Yeah. And while I know you're doing something different now, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but what are some of your takeaways when you look back to that experience, sort of originating different projects and working in venture capital? Did you have sort of good takeaways or did good thoughts, or were there other experiences where you thought, oh yes, it could be improved in this way? What were some of your reflections, just very generally, from working in venture capital?
Okay. Okay. Honestly, I think I have both positive and negative takeaways. Let me
Yeah.
share. Um, from the positive aspect of it, I think one of my greatest takeaways is that finance is actually a catalyst. Remember, we actually just talked about it
Mm,
just before, right?
yeah.
Finance is actually it's a catalyst. But its potential is underutilized. It remains underutilized because financial institutions, while they have the capacity to direct billions of dollars, if not trillions of dollars, towards solutions that could transform industries and societies, many still approach sustainability with a compliance mindset
Yeah.
rather than a strategic opportunity. This is a serious problem. They say it as they approach it from a compliance mindset rather than a strategic opportunity.
Mm,
And and another takeaway is that companies, most finance companies they focus on, or a good number of finance companies, they focus on return on investments. When
Mm,
are we getting our money and the profit? When are we getting it back? That's the focus. And but I mean, currently it's like the true value actually lies in creating what I would like to term as shared prosperity, which
mm,
is one that benefits not just, what that benefits all, that brings about some level or some high level of balance. I'm talking about one that benefits the planet and the people while still delivering strong financial returns,
mm,
instead of, one being at the expense of the other. However, I've also seen challenges like greenwashing, the difficulty in standardizing ESG metrics, and like the slow pace in some institutions. It's These are the barriers that needs to be addressed like urgently. Um, However, the negative takeaway that I have from this, remember I said I had both positive and negative
mm. Yes.
takeaways. The negative takeaway I have from this is that it's the inertia within the system. Too often, again, I would repeat this, like companies focus on short-term returns. Short-term returns is being prioritized almost all the time over long-term resilience.
Mm,
But I believe this presents an opportunity for leadership, because some financial institutions that genuinely embed sustainability into their core operations, not as a cost, but as a source of
mm,
innovation and value creation. You'd see that most companies that actually, embedding sustainability principles, often times they are always like more profitable. Actually, they're often more profitable, and to an extent, I believe this should also shape the future of finance as well. Thank you.
yeah, I agree and totally agree. I love the concept of shared prosperity. I think to reflect myself, I think very often the success of sort of providing finance or providing capital is measured using a very narrow set of measures, return on investment, and maybe a discount cash flow analysis, for example. And while that's all very good, and there's lots of sort of excellent thoughts in that, it fails to capture sometimes some of these wider benefits. So it's quite a narrow lens that's very short term, very financial orientated, and it misses some of these wider societal or even business benefits, such as retaining staff or customer satisfaction. Um, so I totally agree with you there, and also
Yes.
around that compliance mindset, it's something that I come across. I think there's so much emphasis on the regulations and what companies must do, particularly with sustainable finance reporting. And totally get it, it is really important. But I think sometimes that misses just this huge opportunity because there is a financial opportunity there. There's all those wider benefits with a lot of this work too. But with some sustainable finance opportunities, they're not going to present themselves in a nice, neat, perfect discount cash flow with a very good credit rating and all of the same attributes that maybe a more traditional finance opportunity would present themselves. It will be different. So, very often, this is about change and dealing with change. And there will be those opportunities, but they just might look and feel a little bit different or present themselves in different ways or require a slightly different way of thinking. And I think that's sometimes the gap that I see. But I'm not sure if you have any reflections on that yourself.
No, no. I mean, I totally agree with what you said. Um, Sustainability is been often viewed. I mean, just like we've said, it's been often viewed as an what's the word? Um, an ancillary consideration
Mm,
rather than a primary lens through which decisions should be made. Right? Like it's been looked from the angle of, oh, because we have to, due to like
mm,
compliance, like I said, compliance mindsets, regulatory, have to avoid some regulatory issues. And then, but it's actually an opportunity. It should be seen as a primary lens through which financial decisions and like other kind of decisions should be made. It should be seen as a primary lens, like as a necessity, more like
mm.
it should be seen as a necessity. But yes, I mean, I believe you've I mean, the point I was trying to make is just what you said. So yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also I think sometimes there's a view that there's this trade-off, or it's about balancing sustainability with financial outcomes. And while some of that might be true, there's also this wider piece about human flourishing and nature and conservation too. So I think it's quite often this very narrow finance mindset that can sometimes, yeah, sometimes it can be a bit of a limiting belief in there too. But um, I think what I was trying to say is there's there are financial opportunities there. I think that's one of my sort of frustrations with this compliance mindset. It sometimes distracts a little
Yeah.
bit from very real prosperity, be that
Yes,
financial, be that wider for society too, and
yes,
flourishing and thriving, which is what we should hopefully aim for.
yes, yes. I mean, yes, yes.
And then I think again we were talking a little bit earlier about what you do now or maybe this year. And I think congratulations are in order. You've had some news in September, so it'd be great to hear a bit more about what you've been doing this year.
Okay. Thank you very much. So currently, I recently rounded up my internship with the Norwich Institute for Sustainable Development, where I developed sustainability models and strategies that I mean most of which align with like global frameworks like the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement. And then I'm also deeply engaged in advancing sustainable finance practices by advocating for responsible sourcing, life cycle assessments, and innovative climate solutions as well. I mean, while I was, like I said, I recently just completed my master's degree as well in
Mm,
globalization, business, and sustainable development. And one of my,
congratulations.
yeah, thank you very much. And one of my projects that I did was, finding a way to use buildings that would function as an artificial tree which
Mm,
would reduce the rate at which the rate of CO2, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, or the rate of CO2 emissions. Um, and I mean, I also conducted like projects on climate vulnerability, environmental impact assessments. Um, while at the University of East Anglia.
mm,
Yeah, so these experiences and even more, they cement my resolve to contribute to, system level change. However, now I'm actually seeking opportunities where I can make significant impact as well, whether through consulting, finance, or even a hybrid that bridges the
mm,
two. Right. My aspiration is to work with. My aspiration is to work with organizations willing to challenge conventional thinking,
mhm.
adopt sustainability as a strategic imperative, and reshape markets to be more inclusive and resilient as well.
Yeah, well, bravo to you, and wishing you all the very best. I think there's many different people with that objective, so really that importance of collaboration and yeah, I'm sure we'll be listening out for opportunities and can share them your way as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, going back to perhaps your studies and also the work that you were doing with on sustainable development. What what learnings from your time in venture capital or have helped when you were doing maybe your studies or that recent internship? Did you find there were many commonalities between your experience in venture capital and then the internship and your academic studies? Did it help that you had that background?
Yes, yes, it did. It did a lot, actually. It did. Um, my time in the venture capital really taught me about it taught me about it taught me to view sustainability as an opportunity rather than a constraint. It's just what we've been talking about here, really. Uh,
Mm,
because I mean, my time in the venture capital it shaped my understanding of how to assess risks, identify opportunities, and create value in a way that aligns with environmental and social priorities, which is what is being done at the Norwich Institute for Sustainable Development as well.
mm,
This mindset it's been critical in my work, with sustainability consultancy projects, some of which I did with the Norwich Institute for Sustainable Development.
mm,
Where integrating financial and non-financial metrics is key. It's not just about looking at the financial part, but also like there are other parts, so the non-financial aspects too as well. I mean, this is very important, and it can't be overemphasized. They are very, very important, and there's a like there's there's that importance of, or that emphasis to try to balance both, and not one
Mm.
over the other, or one at the expense of the other. I mean, that's what sustainable development is about. Really, it's about looking out for people today, and looking out for the environment today without jeopardizing that of the future, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And you mentioned yeah, I mean, you mentioned with your dissertation or with your masters, I think there was this project looking at trees and learning from trees and absorbing CO2. I was just curious, a quick follow-up question over your studies
Yes.
and the internship. Are there any other projects, or maybe that one that um yeah, you would like to share a bit more about? It's sometimes interesting to hear a bit more about a particular project or example you've been working on.
Yes. Yes. Of course. Sure. So first of all, the using buildings to or using buildings to like mimic to mimic trees, like in an artificial way, which is like having to use buildings to take in carbon dioxide. It wasn't even the project that I did. It was more like it was just one of the climate solutions I provided during one of
Mm,
my course models, climate change and development. I came up with that climate solution. So it just had to do with is it has to do with ensuring that, okay, like in the process of manufacturing building blocks, right,
mm,
instead of making use of concrete, instead you make use of CO2. So CO2 can actually serve as a binding agent. Instead of making use of concrete, you make use of CO2 to serve as a binding agent. It actually undergoes like a sort of like a chemical process anyway, but the CO2 now serves as it replaces the concrete, and you would only require little concrete, which is actually very
mhm.
good for the environment. Because I mean, as you know, like currently the concrete is like the second most consumed substance in the world after water.
Yeah.
And concrete, it comes with like lots of greenhouse gas emissions, really, right? In the
Mhm.
process of, right. So doing this, like, it sort of like reduced the need to use concrete. So that was one of the projects that I did, and that was like while I was still doing my master's degree at the University of East Anglia, and
Mm,
then the project I did with NISD, actually did countless projects with NISD. I did a couple of projects with NISD, but one of the major projects that I did with NISD was having to help the agricultural sector like look for a way to, because we realized that at NISD we realized that most farmers are always experiencing low productivity. And this is due to the fact of climate change. The effect of climate change has affected, it led to low crop productivity, right? So we had to look for
mm,
ways to make agriculture, like to make the farmlands of farmers in different parts of the world, Africa, even in Europe, resilient to the impact of climate change. So how we were able to do is we were able to do is by utilizing technology. So we
mhm,
had to find a way to utilize technology now to inform farmers that, for instance, let's say we are in a period where there's too much drought. So what we had to do was inform farmers that, okay, this is a drought period. If you want to plant crops that are drought resilient, right?
mm,
By doing that, you see that farmers tend to have, like, it wouldn't really affect their crop productivity. But in a situation whereby during the drought season or drought period, you end up planting crops that actually require so much water, I mean, it will lead to, like a significant amount of crop losses, which would, at the end of the day, it would affect their income, and it would even affect the farmlands, and a lot of things as well, because it has a ripple effect actually. And we also focused on this during this project. We focused on Africa because we realized that, like I said earlier, like Africa is it's the Africa is a continent where climate change effects, it's always like at the highest, and this is
mhm,
due to the fact that the infrastructures in sub-Saharan Africa is actually very, very low compared to like developed countries. So in fact, not just Africa alone, but the global south, right? Right.
Mm.
They're always experiencing this compared to the global north, where they have like infrastructures to reduce the impact of climate change on the environment, including the agricultural space. So we at the NISD we did like lots of projects, and I'm really glad that I was able to partake in some of them. And yes, and I look forward to actually doing some with you know other companies, hopefully in the nearest future. But yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And it sounds so so interesting, and those very tangible projects in Africa, and I think particularly with agriculture and water, it's so important. And actually, just yesterday or maybe the day before, I was talking to someone who was based in Spain, and it was on a similar topic. It was looking at water wastage during agricultural processes. So I think it's something very tangible. It's almost quite literally on the ground. It's local and it's very different, and it will impact different places differently. But it's interesting, yeah, just the second time in a week, I'm hearing more about the opportunities and different projects in different locations all around the world on that topic. So I think something to watch. And picking up on a little bit on what you said about opportunities and working on this area, are there particular things that you're looking to do in the future? And also, how could people get in touch with you?
Okay. Okay. Currently, let me answer your question of getting in touch with me. If you want to get in touch with me, I mean, my name is Kenechukwu Nnaemeka. People can get in touch with me on LinkedIn,
Hmm.
and people can also get in touch with me via mail, via my email address, which is kenechukwunnaemeka@gmail.com.
Hmm.
I don't know if I would even need to spell it because I know my name is quite long.
I can put it in the comments or something maybe like this.
All right, all right, thank you. And then, sorry, I forgot the first question because I was addressing the second.
Just the particular things. I think you're looking for new opportunities, and you mentioned, for example, this agriculture and water, working on circular economy or sustainable finance. So I
Yes.
was curious if there are particular opportunities maybe you're looking for yourself, or yeah, if people want to get in touch with you, maybe they have a role or a project, or they're looking for your advice. Are there particular areas that you focus on?
Yes, please. So I'm very open to being contacted. Um, I'm actually open to working in different areas, as long as it has to do with like sustainability or
Hmm.
sustainable finance. Like that's very much very okay and very welcomed. I actually work in different areas, and I'm also open to like I love learning, right? So I don't like
Mm.
myself to a certain area, because I mean there's a lot out there to actually like learn really. But I'm passionate about sustainability. I love the space. There's a lot that needs to be done in this space, and that's why I'm actually here. Um, I'm open to working in different areas related to sustainability, and I'm also open to every other kind of opportunities within this space. Like, I'm very flexible at this time, and I mean, I also look forward to like working with companies, like sustainable consultancy firms, companies that are into sustainable finance, and the rest. Like, I'm really open to all kinds of opportunities. Thank you.
Yeah, great. And I think with this area in particular, with sustainable finance and sustainability, it's really about the more the merrier. I think
Yes.
being quite
Yes.
open, collaborative, and I've really enjoyed the conversations that we've had too. And I think learning from one another, and also sharing some of that passion, and um, learning about new areas and different perspectives too, because we each bring our own particular history and perspective and experience and work experience and all those things. So it's about bringing everyone to the party, I think, and really
Yes.
being quite collaborative. And maybe that's I have two final questions.
Yeah.
One
Sure.
was on the a bit more actually on your experience sort of coming from being born in Nigeria and now in Norwich, they strike me as very different. And I was curious, do you find them different, or do you find there are things that are similar? Is there anything that surprised you?
Um, That's that's a, that's a tough question, but really, so being born in Nigeria and you know having lived in Africa like for a while, I mean for a long
Mm,
time, right?
yeah,
In being used to the area and then coming to like the United Kingdom, I think yeah, you could say there are differences, and there are differences and there are also similarities as well. Yeah, there are differences and there are also similarities, and I feel like the United Kingdom. Let me even come from the sustainability angle, really. So
yeah.
the United Kingdom, it's like the country is actually very big on sustainability, for one.
Mm,
Um, and I think it's I think it's expected anyway of a developed country like the UK because I mean like they have like the knowledge, the technology, and you know like everything that is needed to achieve sustainability is it's all here really. It's just
mm,
about trying to do more, really. But unlike Nigeria, Ghana, and you know other parts of Africa, which are like you know the global South, really, it's these are like regions that are still coming up, right?
mm,
However, I would also say like Nigeria, Ghana, and a few other African countries. I mean, given given the stage at which we are given the stage we are currently in right now, I think these countries are not doing so bad for themselves, but
mm,
definitely I believe they can also do better, especially in the area of sustainability. I feel like t- the attention given to sustainability uh, sector is really low in African
mm,
countries. Generally, in the global south, the attention given to the sustainability areas is very, very low compared to um, the developed countries. However, it's also understandable that I mean the resources might not be there to really tackle sustainability challenges head on compared to or climate change challenges compared to developed countries as well. And permit me to say, but I think it's also I mean looking at the rate at which everyone or different countries or regions contributes to the climate change, I think it's okay to say that the global north actually contributes way more to the climate change compared to the global south. And this is because of the rates of industrialization, which
mm.
is very, very high in the global north compared to the global south, where industrialization is usually very low, you know, very minimal. And of course, like
Mm.
as we know very well, like industrialization, most times it has like a serious contribution to climate change and yes but yeah there are similarities and there are differences as well but I mean weather wise the weather is it's a different thing altogether here.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a different thing altogether here. I mean but it's expected. I mean but then it's like the 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 summer period and the winter period. Honestly, the summer period looks or feels like a winter period to me, compared to Nigeria. Compared to Nigeria, I mean, but then again, it's also understandable that Nigeria is actually like a tropical region, so it's expected to be like most times like you know warm temperature with little seasonal variation. So I mean that's expected too as well. So
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
And for sure, well, I'm based in the Netherlands, originally from the UK, but I'm looking out at a very grey, cloudy, cold day. So it's been very, very chilly this week. So I'm not too far from East Anglia. It's just across the North Sea. So I'm sure it's probably quite similar where you are. And talking about the weather is a very British thing, I can say typically. It's how it's funny that you brought that up. I think probably. And then a final question was sort of thinking about all the things you've done and the studies and internship, and then prior to that, working in venture capital. If you could go back and give yourself advice, So maybe thinking about yourself when you were much younger. You're already young now, but um, what would you say looking back, talking to that young person?
Uh, okay. I would probably say, dear Casey, invest in unicorn companies like Nvidia, Flutterwave, cheaper cash and no pay. That was a joke anyway. But really, if looking at my, I mean, going back and if I could give my younger self an advice, I think
Mm,
I would tell myself, Casey, always look at the bigger picture.
mm,
Don't just ask, is it profitable? Ask, is this sustainable? Is this equitable? Does it solve a problem without creating another problem? Right.
mm,
I would also emphasize the importance of collaboration and working across disciplines, industries, and and borders to ensure to ensure global challenges are being tackled like very properly. Um, and for others, my advice is to embrace complexity. The challenges we face today, climate change, inequality, resource depletion, they are all interconnected, one way or the other. They are all interconnected. And I believe that sustainable finance is a powerful tool, but its success depends on a holistic system based approach, And
mm,
yes, and I would also say learn to think beyond traditional and beyond traditional financial metrics and recognize the immense value of non-financial outcomes. Because I mean, at the end of the day, if we keep focusing on financial outcomes, we tend to forget that if we don't have a planet to live on, planet Earth to live on, I mean, the financial outcomes wouldn't matter anymore to us, really. Currently, we are seeing the effects of climate change in different parts of the world, and it's really, I mean, people are losing their lives,
mm.
properties, and a lot. So, yes, but I mean, I guess that's what I would say to my younger self. But I mean, ultimately, my journey in financial services has been about aligning capital with purpose, and I've enjoyed doing that so far. Um, and I look forward to doing more in different areas. I look forward to like exploring new areas, new opportunities, and I believe by integrating sustainability into every financial decision, we can unlock a future where businesses thrive, and as not just businesses thriving, but ecosystems also flourishing, and societies would prosper that way. It's an exciting time to be a part of the movement, and I'm committed to contributing to a world where finance is a force for where finance is where finance is a force for good. Yeah,
Mm.
I'll leave it at that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our conversation today. Love
Yeah,
your advice as
me
well.
too.
I think there's lots to take away from that. I'll be reflecting on that today, and yeah, I really appreciated just taking the time and the conversation. So
Yeah,
just a big thank you.
yeah. I mean, thank you so much, Rick. I mean, it's an honor to be with you on this podcast. It's a great pleasure talking to HSBC's first CFO of sustainable finance. It's truly my pleasure. It's an honor. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
Yeah.
and thank you to everyone listening. Take care.
Yeah. Take
Bye.
care. Yeah. Bye.